In today's episode, I chat with the incredible Emmi. We talk about how to make accent learning easier and more accessible for everyone because we understand that not everybody has the time or the resources to have longer one-on-one sessions or the availability to attend a seminar or a live stream. And that's exactly what Emmi is trying to combat. We also talk about ear training and a few exercises that'll help you with that. Overall, I've had so much fun, and I'm sure you'll get a lot from this episode too. I'm Bianca, your American accent coach, and I'm here to help you because you might not know this, but your voice is your choice when it comes to your accent in English. I try to release a podcast episode every other week or so, and you can subscribe and get the show notes wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, for the full video version. Now, let's get on with the show. I'm so excited today because Emmi is here with me, and today we're going to be talking about how to make accent training easier, making accent training more accessible, and the importance of training your ear. So clearly 3 subjects that are very close to my heart. But first, for anyone who doesn't know Emmi already, I'd love her to give an introduction of herself. Emmi, is that okay for you?
Yes. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm super excited to be here with you. My name's Emmi, and my business, EK Accent Coaching, is all about training the American accent for people who choose to use it. Mostly I work with non-native speakers of English who are advanced or intermediate and want to use that clear, confident speech for their professional or social lives.
That's actually awesome because clearly we're both in the same sphere, and I would like, if you don't mind, if you could tell us a little bit about what brought you here. Give us a little bit of your backstory, what you're currently doing, and we'll talk a little bit later about maybe something special that people might want to look at right now. So in general, how did you get here, and what are you passionate about especially?
Yeah, so I actually spent most of my career teaching high school, public school Spanish, and that's a tough crowd, but I really enjoyed it. So I've spent a really long time, over 15 years now, teaching English and Spanish. And currently, I'm actually still working the full-time jobs. A lot of people don't know that about me, but I have a full-time office job, and I make trainings and resources for all of the world language teachers in our public school district. So I'm supporting teachers of American Sign Language, French, Spanish, Chinese, Korean, Latin. I hope I didn't forget anybody. I'm going to get in trouble. So yeah, I really do have that language learning and teaching background, which of course I incorporate a lot into my accent training, that knowledge, that research base that I use. But the way that I encountered accent training is actually, I did it myself in college in Spanish. Not in English. Yeah.
Tell us more about that then, because I got my start also in French. I was doing French, and when I went to university, there was a class called French Phonetics or Phonetics in French.
Yes.
I forget the title. And yeah, that just blew my mind. And from then on, I was totally hooked. So how did that happen for you?
Yes. Exactly the same way. So I majored in Spanish in college. I had been learning Spanish for a long time. At that time, it was 2007. I had been learning it for over 15 years. And I had a lot of exposure to it, so that definitely helped me out. But for some reason, over the years, living in the US, even though I was around Spanish a lot in my major, at school, with colleagues at the time, I had some sort of sound substitutions that were creeping in from English, and I didn't know why. And it was super frustrating because I was very advanced in the language, and I just didn't know how to make it sound exactly the way that I wanted to. And I just didn't know why. So it was really lucky that I ended up in the phonetics class. And the class was definitely run as an accent coaching program. So I always tell this story because it's silly. We would use cassette tape recorders, which no one knows what those are anymore.
What's that exactly? No, I'm just kidding.
The cassette tapes? Yeah. Are you 20? Okay.
No.
Yeah, anybody younger than us does not know what that is. But
you're like, it's a square, and you could put a pencil in it, and you could like change. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
So we had these cassette tape recorders. We had a textbook. We did our drills in our dorm rooms. We brought the cassette back to school the next day, and our professor would take them and record over them.
Wow.
And do the habit training that way with us. It worked. It was great. I loved it. And it was just awesome to have that explained to me, the difference between the sounds of English and the sounds of Spanish, how to make the difference, how to make it sound different, and then to go home and try it, and then to have it be corrected. It worked. It was great. So that's how I got
this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I'm going to help people in the same way. I'm going to show them the differences and then help them out with that. Sounds like a very clear path from one to the other. Mine was a French phonetics class, and I had spent some time in France as an exchange student. Came back, and then I took this course, and that's where I learned IPA, and I was like, oh my God, this is magic. Because maybe a little bit about French, they have a very large vowel inventory too, right? We have a lot of vowels, and so do they, but they don't quite match up all of them. So it wasn't until later when I saw like the vowel chart originally, I'm like, wow, why did nobody ever tell me this? Why is this not common knowledge?
Yeah.
And it just drove me batty. So I'm on a mission to make sure everybody knows what this is, because it's not magic and it's not unobtainable, right? It just comes down to some training and some practice and a lot of knowledge. And for me, I have the opposite problem in Spanish because I'm living in Mexico now. And so I'm working on my Spanish, and I have the problem where I have my English vowels, my French vowels, and I also speak some Arabic. So Spanish, like Arabic, it's 5 vowels, you say 5 vowels. It should be easy, except for me, it's very hard to reduce the number of my choices. And maybe that's partly because of spelling. And we have some cognates too, that you see it and it just comes out wrong because you don't think about it too much, and you need to consciously think about it and make those changes. So I think we have like a similar background. This is going to be a lot of fun. I think talking today, I've been following you on social media. I'm like, she knows what's up. She's got this.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, this is very good. And it's nice to hear too that you are working on this as well as having another full-time job, because it's a lot of work. Like, people don't realize how much it takes to just make a little reel for Instagram. Oh, I'll just make some reels. No, you have to think about what you want to say. You have to make sure it's under a minute. You have to film it. You have to edit it. You have to upload it. It's a lot of work, just one video. So I'm right there with you.
Yes.
So first of all, high five, because we're doing a great job.
Yes.
And and I know that we're already helping a lot of people. So we want to talk about today 3 things that do help people. Number 1, in your experience, you wrote this in quotes too, making accent training, quote, easier. Tell me what you meant by that and give us some ideas here.
I'm afraid to call it easy. I don't want to tell anyone it's easy, so that's why I have the quotation marks. Habits are hard to change, and speaking is a habit. The way that we speak is a habit. And the way that we substitute sounds from a first language to a second is a habit that one needs to become consciously aware of and needs to learn to self-correct or have corrected when you're trying to make that change in the habit, right? It's just a habit of speaking with a lot of sound substitutions. And part of the reason why I came back to accent training, but there was a detour of public school teaching of many years. So I wasn't on a solid trajectory straight into this right after I first discovered it in 2007. And the way I came back to it actually has a lot to do with this idea of, is it really easy? Can it be done? And that's because I actually ran into my professor, who was the original professor in 2007 of the phonetics class. I ran into him like 2 years ago, really recently.
No kidding.
Many years later. And we built a bench together for my balcony. And
because that's what you do with your former phonetics professors.
Yes, he was recently retired and full-on bench building all the time.
Nice.
Yeah, and I ran into him, and we made that plan, and we were talking in his backyard after some hard work in carpentry. And I told him how much it helped me to be in that class and how I was teaching ESL, like teaching
Can
adult.
I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
When you hired a carpenter to build a bench, did you know that it was your former phonetics teacher?
Yes.
You're like, something's going on
We
here.
saw each other and then made the bench plan.
Okay. So you saw each other at the supermarket or something, and you realized, hey, you do benches. I need a bench.
Exactly.
I have. Okay, because that's an interesting way to get from point A to point B there. Thanks for clarifying that.
He's a very enthusiastic person and has a lot of hobbies. So.
I think, are you that way too? Because I am like that. I do lots of fermentation of things. I'm all over the projects. I just can't do just one thing. I think people must think that I'm thinking about speaking 24/7, which I am, but also my brain is thinking about 100 other things as well at the same time. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Good. So it's probably just like an occupational hazard then.
Yes, it's teachers being teachers.
Maybe it's just a teaching thing.
Zesty and enjoying creative pursuits.
Yeah, that must be it. Okay, it's not an accent coaching thing then. It's not a pronunciation thing. It's probably just a teaching thing. That's probably it.
I thought it was a language teacher thing because everybody remembers that quirky language teacher.
That could be the case too. Yeah, there's always something about your language teacher. Okay, so fast forward to bench making.
We were taking a break. And I told him about how much the class had helped me and how much I enjoyed it and what it did for my accent and my communication. And I asked him, I said, do you still teach that class? Do you accent coach people? Because I had heard about it as a niche in ESL because I was doing ESL at the time as like a side gig. He said, no, I don't really do it. And he said, I've been asked many times. And he told me this story about he was speaking in Japan at a university there. He's a world famous professor, this guy, in linguistics. He was flying back and sat next to someone, a businessman, who was also flying to the US. And when they found out what the other one did, they started talking. And this businessman asked him to give him accent coaching. He said, you're a world famous linguist. You can help me. I will pay you anything you want.
Wow.
to help me, because he said, I don't know if this is true. This is what he said. He said that he was losing millions of dollars a day because of the way that he.
Oh, that's how he felt, at least, right? Yeah.
Yes, that's how he felt. Exactly. And my professor said that he wouldn't do it. And I said, why wouldn't you do it? I mean, you don't need the money, but.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's holding out for more money.
He said he wouldn't do it. And he said, because it's so hard. Someone needs to become basically a different person and have a different identity to change their accent. And I can't choose that for people.
So he had already thought about it. He had already considered it, and he decided this wasn't for him. Interesting.
So I like to find opportunity in challenge. Nothing to say about him, but that's just my personality. So I heard that, and I understood that. And I also thought, okay, how can we help our students and clients cross that challenge? How can we incorporate things into coaching that isn't just listen and repeat, corrections, explicit knowledge teaching, that kind of stuff? How do we layer in things into the coaching that asks them to reflect on identity and asks them to think about what their goals are, understanding that it's not something that's just going to be a learned skill that you just pick up.
Oh, yeah.
It's something that has to come from within, that desire and that.
I get it. For some people, that's very inherent, especially if you grow up speaking more than one language and you do a lot of code switching. And even if you're monolingual, you know that when you're speaking to your boss, you speak one way and you present yourself as a certain way. You have a certain voice and a certain persona and identity. And then you're at a family party and you're talking to your little nibblings and you change your personality, right? So it doesn't have to be language related, but there is identity there. And how should I say, use our voice to connect with the world and with different people. And a lot of people, I think, at least first come to this idea of accent coaching, accent acquisition, whatever you want to call it, with the mindset of, oh, it's all just mechanical. And they don't realize that it's okay to have different sides of your personality. And if that switches with a language or with a dialect or with a certain accent, then if that's something you want, great. And if it's not, you can also cut that out too. So it's just a whole different layer, I feel like, that a lot of people don't know at first, but then often quickly realize too. And it's a little bit scary sometimes. For example, in French, I am not funny. Like, I am not a funny person in French.
Oh, yeah.
So I have it too. And I think when I was there, I was young. I was a teenage girl. Maybe I wasn't funny when I was young. I don't know. But I have a certain identity in another language, and I can attest to that too. But it's a big deal because it's not just muscles and drills and things like that. It goes much deeper. So all that to say, yes, totally get what you're saying. A lot of people maybe have never thought of that. So just to explain it a little bit more and to go into more depth with that.
Totally normal to be a different person in a different language.
And if you're not, maybe there's something going on there too we should question.
Yeah, it's something to talk about. So that kind of affects my teaching and the way that I train and the way that I coach by trying to make things easier by doing a lot of those other pieces, doing those sort of reflecting with people, talking about making that choice of how far they want to push this. And I earned my stripes teaching high school public school Spanish, right? That I'm very well acquainted with how to make something a little more engaging, a little more motivating, a little more inherently desirable than just here's the information, here's the skill, I will teach it to you and you'll practice it and then we're done. So that's the way that I try to make accent training, which is inherently difficult, challenging, I think. It's challenging to change your habits, to do something very differently that you're used to doing without thinking too much about it.
Yeah.
And layering in those elements of internal motivation, praise, leading the client a little bit, showing them that I'm there to support them, adding things into accent coaching you wouldn't expect to be there.
Yes, yes, totally. I don't know how many times people have said, "Oh, I feel like this is therapy," and because it's just you talk about so much more than you would have expected to. And I don't know if this is the case for you, but I'm constantly trying to get people just to produce more, just to talk more, and more opportunities to use that as an opportunity, anyways. So yeah, we end up just talking about things that you would not talk with other people about, and it becomes a very close relationship.
Yes.
We just explore things about identity too that you wouldn't think of on your own, perhaps, unless prompted. I want to say it goes deep, but also there's layers there too. And what you just mentioned about working in the school, how, oh, I give you an activity, you do it, we're done. No, it's not like that. It's different components too. So when we say making something easier, here's what I think. Here's how I would describe it. Because it's not easy. I don't think there's any single part of the process that it's easy, but I do think it's very simple, or it can be simple. So easy is different from simple. And I would say, at least in how I do it, I try to simplify things, reduce it down to one variable as much as we can. So if I were saying, how can I simplify this? How can I make it easier? Because part of it is habit training. And it's just the habit training and getting into a habit and forming a habit and keeping the habit. And the other thing might be muscle memory, or it might be ear training or something like that. So yeah, so making things easier. As we said, it's not easy. Habits are hard to change. Accents are all the different habits that I have of speaking. Boom, that equals my accent. And that's who I am. And that can be different. So you told me a little bit about your professor, right? And we know that there's a lot more to that. And we want to get to some successful training. You were saying something about high schoolers, and they're kind of a tough crowd. So do you have any, let's say, memories of that or stories from working in high school? Because I worked in a high school, and there are stories there.
All right. So just a unrelated, high school battle story. Sure. A great time teaching high school Spanish. I got to say, I had a blast and still have so many good memories and still get recognized out in public sometimes. But of course, there's been a few things that have happened. I was left a piece of artwork on a desk one time, my first year of teaching, and it was a knife with blood dripping off of it, and it said, "I hate Spanish." The typical
angsty art. Yeah, I was left a piece of art. Yeah,
I was left a piece of art accidentally. Another one. I was teaching a study skills class, and after 5 to 10 minutes, I was supposed to walk through and check what they were doing and ask them what they wanted to finish by the end of the class. And I'm walking around checking off, and I walk past, and there's this black screen with dripping red on it, and I look over, and it's how to summon demons. And I just checked off my list. I kept walking. There's no way I'm getting into that.
Was it in Spanish or was it in English at least?
This was just study skills in English.
Okay, so study skills in English. Okay. Yeah, who knows if that would help you study.
But I had a good time. I have the spirit of a teenage child inside of me, so I get it. Sometimes school sucks.
And you can't take it too much to heart as the teacher. You have to just remember that, that's how it is back then. Yeah. Absolutely. As you said, we're all busy, and you think a big part of this job, which I agree with you 100%, is motivating, leading, inspiring. I think praise is also very interesting because we all grow up in certain different cultural systems or different school systems too. And I've noticed that culturally, how you interact with somebody in a group, small group, one-on-one, that can be very much influenced by culture. And I say this because I was recently talking to a one-on-one client that I've had for a while now. And then he said, "Oh, I just love seeing you on Mondays because I feel like my dog, when I take my dog to dog school and how my dog always gets treats and they just love going there and they're not afraid to go." And I was like, I don't know how I should take that. I'm hearing that you like it, but also that you're comparing yourself to your own dog. And it was just a funny little comment. And I dug in a little bit, and he said, "Oh yeah, that's because in school where I'm from, we don't get praise. We just get always told what's wrong, and we're never good enough. And that leads to a complex." So yeah, that's why I would totally agree with you there, and how you and I need to know what works for somebody, because that could maybe turn somebody else off completely.
Yeah, that's true. But we also know from the research in second language acquisition and language learning, stress and anxiety is no way to learn. So I think this is definitely a takeaway from my years of Spanish teaching that I wasn't an entertainer. No, it was not my job to entertain, but as much fun as we could have, as much pleasant emotional experience you could have in the classroom, the more language you're going to absorb. I don't take that lightly. I take it as a strategy, an explicit strategy and tool we can use when used appropriately to motivate and to get people to absorb more language and feel more natural in it and feel more comfortable with us. So it's not just being nice. It's not just having fun.
Yes.
But it's just that other element. I think so often a lot of teaching, a lot of information dissemination on the internet is just so information centric. If I just give you these tutorials about this, let's say a sound, and it's on a blog or something, right? Trying to think of the least personal delivery possible. So text-based instructions. People think many times that information is so valuable, but we're like up to here with information. Information is everywhere. I know your audience includes a lot of teachers. People want to learn from a specific person. Yeah, they want the information, but they want it from you. And they want, like you said, to simplify it, to provide the other elements of it that are beyond just the teaching and the correcting, like your other student mentioned. That praise can be so important too. So that's what I mean by making it easier.
Yeah, totally. Because there's information overload. There's an ocean of information out there. And you, as the person trying to find an answer, don't know what the good information. You can't separate the wheat from the chaff, right? You could, because clearly you don't have the expertise. So people look to people like us to separate that out for us and to say, here's why you're confused. I understand that you tried to look this up yourself, and I can see how you hit a brick wall with this. I can see how you only went so far with an app or a video or a course where you got some videos in your email and things like that. So like you said, it's everything else that makes a student want to learn with you or with me. And one thing I like about my group of teachers is that if somebody comes to me and I'm like, it's not the best fit, I know this other person who I think you'd really get along with better, then it's really nice to have that network of people to be able to match people more appropriately. So that's another thing I like about not just knowing a lot of people who are looking for these services, but also having us all know each other better for this, because I know it feels like there's a lot of competition out there, but that's not actually true.
No.
That's really not true. And so sometimes accent coaches are like, oh, I don't want to give away all my secrets. And it's like, all the secrets are there, man. Ask ChatGPT.
It's all out there.
You can find the secrets. What you want to do is get inspired by somebody who's like you. And that's a huge part. Like you said, it really sticks in that way. So to summarize, making something easier maybe means distilling it in a way that it makes sense where it comes from me to you, the person. And that's going to be unique with everybody. And that's going to change person to person so that you can find your voice, so that you can understand that is part of the process. And it's not just all mechanical. So in that kind of same vein, let's talk about accessibility, because it's definitely a niche thing that we do. And like you said, information's all there, right? You can do it. You can do it all by yourself. I know people who have done it all by themselves. They've never left their home country. Their accent is spot on with that of a native, right? And you can totally do it for yourself for free. There's all those resources are there. But let's say not enough people are willing or able even to do that, because first of all, that requires internet connection, which maybe not everybody has. So how can we make this accessible?
Yeah, I found that to be the case too. It's out there for free, but, and there's a big but, sometimes what I find is people who are interested in having that one-on-one training or even just watching videos, those free videos, there's tons on YouTube. I actually looked it up one time. I looked up how many American accent videos there are on YouTube, and it was over 2 million.
Yes, so many.
This was 6 months ago.
And let me just tell you, so we're recording this right now. It's November 2023, and I'm going to be starting my YouTube channel kind of full-time next year. So I polled people and I said, hey, what kind of videos do you want? Do you want pronunciation? Do you want prosody? I was hoping nobody would really say much about that. I said, do you want me to talk to other people in the field? Do you want me to do more analyses of movies and things like that? And what did everybody click on? Pronunciation. I'm like, really? Really? Because there's
it's already out there.
Okay, so there's already 2 million videos. What do we do then?
Well, We all know that they put that because they want to learn it from you, which we've discussed. True. They're requesting videos from you, which is fabulous.
I'll have to do those videos anyways, so. Yes.
Yeah. I realized that the whole concept of sitting down for a one-on-one lesson or sitting down for a lot of videos for my audience, at least, the people that are attracted to the way that I present things, I would say my brand of pronunciation video is pretty quick, pretty down to business, and without a lot of explanation. So I know there's someone for everyone, and my crowd tends to not gravitate towards longer explanations. I think that they're really busy, and I've found that out because when I have said, okay, let's do a group program, let's do live one-on-ones, let's do that, people want to, they have the desire, but they don't have the ability to spend the time. So what kind of happened was I wanted to help more people. I couldn't help more people in the one-on-ones because of my time being limited. Couldn't help people in the group program because of their time and their calendar being all over the place. And so I thought, okay, what can you do if you can't sit in front of a video or a screen?
Which is not as effective as we've said already.
Yeah. I had a video course, wasn't very popular. Like I said, my people don't have time for that. So I figured out that what they were actually gravitating towards and what was actually selling and what people were actually opening and engaging with was audio. So that's how I've made it more accessible to more people. And it's been, I wouldn't say taking off, but taking off in comparison to the other things that I have offered before, for sure.
Oh, yes. And I want to talk more about how that works because I saw it visually, like I saw it, but I still want to hear from you more about how it works because this is something I experiment a lot with in Telegram. And I used to do challenges where each month it was a certain challenge. So you would listen to or watch a video and then you would respond with something related to that. And it was maybe similar because I hear the same thing, right? So even though you make the whole video for people, they may not have time to watch it or there's other things competing for their attention. But I feel like maybe we're regressing a little bit back to the cassette tape of audio only.
If only.
Yes. What did they used to call those? Correspondence courses, I think they were called. Do you remember?
Yes, by mail.
Yes, exactly. Something like that. And so
I think about that all the time.
I feel like that's what we're back to in a way. We've come full circle. Of all the things we have, maybe we're finding out for sure human stuff, like human-centered approach for sure. Not just information, not just something I see on a screen, whether it's video, whether it's text only, but really connecting with people. And it sounds like what we're also moving towards is micro-learning also, not setting aside such large chunks, but instead thinking more about repetition and frequency more than anything. So you really zoned in or honed in, I should say. You really honed in on what your target audience needs and wants and is able to do, which is not easy. And then you've actually made it easier. You've made it simpler for people to achieve their goals by simplifying your own process too, which is audio only, which is going to be a whole lot easier than making a whole video course. So you've got these audio-based programs, which I want to come back to. I want to talk more about the mechanics of it. But first, can we talk a little bit more about your training and why that is important for people? Because a lot of people think it just has to do with the mouth. And like we said before, they don't consider identity or what they need to know. But let's start with the input and the ear. So tell us a little bit more about ear training and how you view it.
I think it's important for any form of accent coaching. It's super important when the more independent the learner needs to be in the program, the more you need to train their ear because I'm not there all the time to correct, right? So ear training is paramount when you're working on your own, in my opinion. And this could be for people who are doing this for free on YouTube too. Starting with the listening. I'm very committed to that, maybe more than I think maybe other accent coaches are because of my language teaching background. So we know a lot. This is old research now about input and output and how you cannot output what was not input.
How can you write if you can't read something? Yeah.
Exactly. So with language learning, we know the importance of listening and reading first or more than speaking and writing. When you're speaking and writing, you're not adding to the system. You're just accessing the system. The flip side of that for accent training is that if you're not identifying correctly what you are hearing and how it's different from other sounds, how are you possibly going to pronounce it differently? I grew up in a Czech-speaking household, and I can say a word to any family member, and they'll say it right back to me, and they'll think they're saying the same thing. And of course, the individual phonetics of it is just, they heard something different.
Yep.
I really tap into my teaching background, try to come up with a lot of different ways to train the ear. So anything I can come up with that's a game, error identification, contrasting different words, I'll try to say it with a sound substitution that I've just talked to them about in the audio lesson, for example. I try my hardest to come up with any possible way I can push the ear training before we move into productive practice. Yeah.
I'm envisioning this, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm envisioning what you're saying right now to be with a person in real time. So you're saying this kind of stuff, but you wouldn't do that in the audio only format because that's a lot of back and forth, right? You mean live?
I do. So I double down on this in the audio only format. So before we move into listen and repeat, before we move into shadowing, anything like that, there's a lot of ear training first. And like you said, that's one-sided. So I do have PDFs that accompany the lesson, accessible on the phone, try to make it easy.
Yeah.
And it could be, here's 2 columns of words. They're minimal pairs. They only differ by one sound. Which one am I saying, column 1 or 2? And that's like your basic listening quiz. I have racked my brain, and I'm sure I will come up with more in a year that I'm like, why didn't I think of this sooner? For all the ways, all the different iterations I can continue to do that. Other than the which word am I saying, minimal pair practice, how many errors meaning what I just taught to hear for, how many errors am I making with this sound in this sentence? Did you get it right? Literally, it's one-sided, but it's as varied as possible.
Okay. Yeah, because I was trying to think about how would you do that in a kind of asynchronous way?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you have this with one-on-one students, but have you ever heard of Bader-Meinhof? Do you know the...
No.
For our listeners too, they might not know it, great, because it's very specific. And Bader-Meinhof is the idea of, oh, we were just talking about Smurfs yesterday or whatever, right? This was way before when all of your devices were listening to you. And then you'd be like, hey, how did they know I was just thinking about this? No, this was like way before. You'd say, oh, we were just talking about Smurfs on Tuesday. And here it is Thursday. And some random person at the supermarket mentions Smurfs. And you're like, wait a minute. So it's this perception bias that we have. And I seem to get this a lot in a one-on-one session. Somebody will maybe make a mistake. Maybe it's just something completely different. They'll say a word, and then later, that exact word is the perfect example of the thing that I'm talking about 5 minutes later. All of this like spontaneous stuff that happened, it's magical. And so I was trying to figure out how would you set that up in an asynchronous audio only format? Because I think that a lot of the magic of one-on-one happens there. And I know you and I, we don't have time for all the one-on-ones we would like. People don't have the time as well. So the more we can figure out ways to insert that magic into these things, I think the better, because it is difficult to connect with somebody when it's asynchronous. So it's a little bit more difficult, I should say. So you've been trying to come up with these different ways to do ear training, because it really starts with that. How do you then move to get them to correct their own pronunciation? What's that like for you?
I have it structured by weeks. In the middle of a week, there's going to be some traditional listen and repeat type of practice where they hear me and there's a pause and they can try the word that's on the PDF, right? All that. And we move from words to phrases to paragraphs to shadowing and escalate it that way. And then there's an element that is not asynchronous, and that's crucial, the most valuable, I would say, element of my programs. And that is the asynchronous audio coaching. It is asynchronous, but it's recorded live. It's very structured. Like I said, I've thought it all out for the students. I don't want them sitting there thinking about what am I going to say in my recording. No, there's plenty of ideas. There's plenty of low-hanging fruit to just get you started on the task. And so they'll record something for me. And just like my professor with the cassette tape, I will record something back. And that's where you said the word magic. That's where the magic happens, because I'm telling them, okay, this, I can tell you're doing this sound and it sounds good. And they might feel so unnatural making that sound, and they don't have a listener to confirm with them that it does sound right. You're doing it right. It sounds great.
Yes.
So that's lovely to be able to provide that in my recordings. Also to get to know people. And a lot of the people that are in my program, we're like connected on Instagram. So I also scope out their life and show them parts of mine. And so that's really nice. Also, that's where I can supplement the program. So it's structured into 10 sounds and concepts. And that's going to be the 10 sounds and concepts that from hundreds of hours of one-on-one client work, I've determined to be the most common, the most challenging. But then somebody shows up and they've got a little bit of a challenge distinguishing between V and W sound. So that's where I add that in. So I give extra coaching extra lessons, extra drills, extra feedback. So that's my favorite part of the program, of course.
Ah, okay. Okay. Yeah, because that was something I was thinking of asking you too, because it sounds like so much a club. It sounds like people don't know each other there, but because they're Instagram and they get to know you more because of their voice, you're exchanging voices, right? Basically. And you then get to know them a little bit better because maybe they have a problem that's not on the list or a target that's not on the list, right? So this morning I had somebody who could do zh, but they couldn't do j. And so that got a big old asterisk right there. In that case, what do you do for that? Do you say, hey, come at this other time? Or do you make an audio and say, hey, I noticed this as well? Is this something you want to work on too? Like, how does that fit in with your already structured program?
So I don't want to derail them from the week's goal, of course. Nothing is simple, but if it's something that is simple to explain and see, for example, consonants where the sound doesn't change too often, if it's a consonant that can be trusted in the spelling, I will point it out earlier and I will over time weave it into my audio coaching messages. These messages are like over 10 minutes each. It's not a quick little good job.
Okay.
It's personalized. The messages that I'm sending back are, yes, about the target sound of the week, but also I'm weaving in repeatedly over time, when the time is right, extra goals. And if it's something like pace, and I know that they're in week 4 of the program, and week 4 is on syllable stress and making contrast with volume, length, mouth opening, the usual. I'll tell them, I'll say, this is going to help with your pace because you need to spend more time in the stressed syllables. Right. So I'll kind of weave it in where it's natural. And that's where I get to make choices as a teacher based on my experience, based on my knowledge, and choose the right moment and way to put that in.
Yeah, because things always come up, right? You're like, here's the plan. And then you notice something or something becomes important to them and maybe they have something that comes up. So that's really excellent that I have that like also thought out too. Like, how am I going to deal with this? That's really fantastic.
Yeah. Keeps me on my toes.
Yeah, exactly. It must be boring to not have something like that because to me, it's not just the magic for other people, but it's also what I get excited about in a live kind of situation, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous. But, oh, did you just notice that? Oh, listen to that. Do that again. And you can't predict that. So to me, that's what sparks my interest and my intellect is, oh, look at this. We could talk about this now too. And that's how those opportunities seem to come up too. Yeah. So we've got our inputs. You're getting output. They're getting feedback. And you mentioned in our notes that the input is the investment. And can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, this stands for language teaching, language learning, accent training, anything. And the input is the investment. And the more that you invest in building that system, whether it's you're learning a language or you're teaching a language or you're listening and learning how to listen for those different sounds, that's the investment that's only going to help you when you turn around to try to produce something.
Now I get you. I get you. Yeah. So you mean like what you were saying earlier, that the output is really just accessing all that. So the more you put in there, input literally, the more you put in there, then the more you have at your disposal to access then. Okay. I got you.
Yeah. And by input, it could be any number of things. I ask my students to watch people talk on mute. Pull up an Instagram video, mute it, and just look at their mouth. Go look at a native speaker, how they're talking. I ask them to input with their eyes, input with their ears, input as much as is still interesting, because I'm very cognizant of attention and motivation and internal motivation, right? Very cognizant of that, having taught high school children.
Wait a minute. You mean not everybody is as excited about this stuff as you and me? Seriously?
No.
Yeah. Sadly, not everybody, at least yet. And it is also my mission to make people as excited and nerdy about these things as me. So that's part of my mission too. But
they get into it.
I recognize they don't start that way. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And on that note, one thing that I just love looking at is animation videos and how animators are taught to animate the mouths of characters and what that looks like. So I was telling you earlier that I'm deaf in one ear. And long before I knew I was deaf in the ear, going deaf in the ear, I was in university. I was an anthropology major at the time. And I remember I always used to sit in the front row. And first of all, I was nerdy, geeky. So I always sat in the front row anyways. But then one day I was taking notes and I took off my glasses to clean them. And I realized I couldn't hear what the teacher was saying suddenly, the professor. And I put on my glasses and I could hear him again and kind of trying to figure out, like, what's going on here? And it wasn't until later that I found out that I was going deaf in this ear, and I had already started reading lips. And I had no idea. It was not conscious at all. And so to me, this teaching of animation and how to animate the lips, at least in English, how to make it match that, I always found really fascinating. So I think those are beautiful drawings in that way. But I can see how it has a similar feel to like just putting something on mute, super simple.
Yeah, and I do focus a lot on that. I think it's part of my method, actually. I don't know if it's unique. I feel like it might be compared to some programs I've seen, but starting with that sort of more of the path of the voice, the movement, starting with all of that before we focus on a single sound at all. I don't do sounds first, sounds forward type of training. We start with the movement of the mouth, the movement of the jaw, the way it's supposed to look, how open is open enough, how open is too open. And kind of focusing on that first. And that's always a big aha. And you explain that and they see it.
Unless they had gone to a speech therapist or something when they were young, chances are they haven't never really thought about it too much, about the jaw or the lips or the tongue or the vocal folds or airflow, all those things. And it just often starts with breathing. We don't think about breathing very often, but in different languages, we also breathe differently and we hold the breath and we release the breath in different ways too. So without that kind of actual information in your brain, you might not, how should we say, you might not be aware of it enough to even think about controlling it. So I think that's great. That's a great place to think about starting then before forget about sounds. Just think about your body and what your body is doing. And it's so used to doing that you really don't think about it, because these are not just habits of listening or habits of noises coming out of our mouth, but just literal body habits, something we don't even think about controlling very often. So I think we're on the same page. It's all about motivation. It's all about having fun. It's all about the experience, that live experience, whether it's asynchronous or synchronous at the same time. And we want to keep engaged, keep ourselves engaged, keep our people engaged as well, make sure it's interesting to them and meaningful and memorable. With all that, then goals are, I'm going to quote again, easy. Goals are easier to reach when you have all those other pieces in place and it's not just about any one thing. Oh, that's really awesome. And do you have anything else that you'd like to add to our 3 topics? Because in a minute, I want to ask you about what you're currently doing and how people can get involved with you and find out if you guys are a good fit. But just to reiterate, we were talking about making accent training easier or simpler, making it more accessible, and also the importance of training your ears. Is there anything we forgot to mention so far?
I don't think so. I feel like we've touched on everything. One thought that I had that I hadn't really shared when you were just speaking earlier. I'm sorry about my cat.
Is that yours or mine? I really don't know.
It's mine.
Okay, because I have one too, and I have this microphone, and I close my door to record, and I close the curtains, I close the door, and she's, hey, what? No, I need access. And so when I hear meowing, I just assume it's her, but I don't know if other people can hear it because I don't know if my microphone is always picking up on it.
No, it's mine. It's my Tyson. No, he's upset because my spouse is on the balcony teaching English, and he is unhealthily obsessed with them. So
I see. So again, he wants access, or the cat wants access, right? And
free egress, which is an advanced English term I only learned 2 weeks ago.
Oh, lovely. Egress is leaving, or egress is entering, or is it both?
I have no idea.
Let's see. I think egress just means passage. Let me just take a quick look. Noun, the act or instance of going, especially from an enclosed place. So if your cat is enclosed and he wants to go out, that makes sense. Yep, egress. So it only means leaving. I didn't realize that. I thought it could also be entering. Ta-da! English lesson of the day.
Yes. We learn vocabulary our entire lives. I'm still learning English, everybody.
And if you're not learning vocabulary like all the time, you're probably stagnating as a person, as a human. So, so tell us a little bit more about how people can find you, what they can maybe expect, because I'm sure a lot of people out there are going to be like, oh yeah, I really like how she teaches. I really like her personality. And they're going to want to get in touch with you a little bit more.
Thank you. Yeah. So my business is housed on ekaccentcoaching.com. And I also have EK Accent Coaching profiles and accounts on Instagram and Facebook. And right now I have my main programs that I am constantly trying to share more about are called Accent Transformed. And that's the 10-week core course. And people have the option of just getting that course. And that's 5 lessons a week, 10 to 15 minutes on average each lesson. So 50 total. And that's on 10 goals, sound and concept type goals.
Awesome.
That is my baby. I've been working on that, putting my best tips, my most passionate teaching into it, but in small bites, of course, for people to be able to access easily.
Talk about
And
distilling that. And can I pause before you move on to the next one? Because you mentioned the phone. So is it on Telegram? Is it on WhatsApp? Is it on its own app? What's the portal, let's say? What's the platform?
I use a platform called Soundwise, and it is a audio/podcast hosting platform. People can have free soundcasts there with individual tracks, or they can pay for premium so that they're private. So I have a private podcast on there, and it's not structured like a podcast. It's structured like audio lessons.
Got it. Yeah, because when I visually saw that, I was just trying to see, is it a whole app that you've created? I was like, wow, that's a lot.
No.
Wow.
No, but it's
that makes
still
sense.
a lot.
There's another service out there that makes sense. That'd be a great app service. If anybody's out there listening, if anybody designs apps, make an app that accent coaches can use that is specifically designed for this kind of thing. You're using this third-party thing that's specifically for podcasts. But yeah, I know there's a bunch of other ones too. I think one's called like SoundPipe or SpeakPipe, something like that, where you're volleying audios back and forth. But yeah, if there's any app designers out there, I would pay for that app. So yeah.
So I do use SpeakPipe in my other program, which I'll talk about later. But yes, it would be cool if they were together.
Nice. Okay, so keep going. Tell us about Accent Unlimited then.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, Accent Transformed is the 10-week program. People can just do that if they want. And that's got PDFs to go with every lesson. You can imagine how people can interact with that. And just wanted to mention it can be accessed on a computer as well. Phone, app, or computer. So Accent Unlimited is Accent Transformed plus audio coaching one-on-one. That's essentially what it is. As you're working through Accent Transformed, and you could take as long as you want, whether you buy the course one-off or you subscribe to monthly Accent Unlimited access with me, then you can take as long as you want to get through the course. It's not like a 10-week expiration date, but as you're working through, there are moments in the program, or really whenever you want, you can send me a direct message up to 5 minutes at a time. SpeakPipe is the tool I use for that. So it does have a 5-minute limit. It's built in. That's where the 5 minutes comes from. And then within a day or two, usually the same day, because I'm so excited to hear from them, I will get back to them and I'll record something of any length as needed to give them that feedback and inspiration, motivation, praise, all of that. And then also just extra awareness, extra knowledge, extra drills, extra coaching, anything that I feel is necessary, I'll provide then. So that's really it. And I did make a choice not to have like a community type of feature to the subscription or membership. I just don't think that my audience has the time, unfortunately. I'm trying to make something that's so easy, so quick, so thought through, so that you don't have to spend a lot of time engaging with the platform, a lot of time communicating on the technology, like spending time on the tech, that you could just be your earbuds ready to go and talk to me through the mic, and that's it.
That makes sense then. Yeah, because that's a whole different ball of wax. It's a whole different thing of time commitment too, is synchronizing times. Yeah, because I do 3 different clubs. Yeah, I have 3 different clubs. One is where people can just come once a week and show up for my office hours. Another one is we meet 3 times a week live. And so there's some choices there. Not everyone can make all those times, so that's why they exist. And then my other one is for teachers, but it's also 3 times a week too. Because it is one of the hardest things, the scheduling thing, right? For me, I find it really valuable. I find it really worth my time to try to create community with that. But that is usually the failing point, is something about scheduling, and a lot of people are intimidated by any platform, anything new. So there's always a learning curve there. And yeah, I get you. This is a much more simple, more direct way to just get that thing that they're looking for. So that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I have one-on-one clients almost every day. So I still do that. So I have one-on-one sessions almost every single day. And I love that aspect of the business as well. So this is just another arm of the business. I also like just posting my free videos on Instagram. That's super fun.
Yes.
Anything related to connecting with people, teaching them new information that makes their eyes go wide. Oh yeah, I never heard that before. And makes them feel empowered and makes them feel like they're finding some success, taking steps one by one. Anything like that is what I want to bring as a teacher.
Where once there was frustration, now there's that aha moment, and then there's this empowerment of, oh my God, I can totally do this. It's not magic. And there's a way to reach that goal. I love that. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things. Okay, so you are doing one-on-ones as well. And and so people can find all of that where? Which page should they go to on your website?
I have the one for the audio programs, and then just the general website. They can click on coaching and they can find out or just contact me, really. There's a contact me page on there. Find me on Instagram. I'm everywhere by the same name, EK Accent Coaching. But yeah, on the website, we've got www.ekaccentcoaching.com/join now, JOIN, another N, now, NOW. Okay. Join now. Yeah. So that would be for the Accent Transformed and also the Accent Unlimited option. Both of those options are on that page.
Awesome. Awesome. Super great. Okay. This is actually, for people who are listening to this podcast, this is the first time we've met in person, but I feel like I already know you because I've been following your stuff on social media, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is a person who has the same spirit as me, likes to have fun and isn't very stuffy or overly information based, right? And it's more about the experience. So I was like, oh, I know this is going to be a good interview. This is going to be super fun. So I'm really glad that you were able to come today, and thank you so much for joining us. And I'm sure that this is not the end of our conversations. We're probably going to meet again. So we'll have to think about more specifically what we want to talk about next time.
I love talking about my work. So
awesome. Me too.
We could talk about it all the time.
Yeah. I love talking to people who are like-minded, like we just nerd out about these things. And yeah, I could talk for hours about this. So that's also why I have my teacher's program, is because I need an outlet for talking about this, because my roommate gets fed up, that's for sure. And he doesn't want to hear about it all the time. And I need to talk to people. So I'm creating my own community so that I can talk to other people about this. So that's what I wanted to end with, is the fact that there's a lot of accent coaches out there. A lot of people maybe see each other as competition, but I don't think that's how it should be. So I think we should have more community. We should all meet each other. And I hope that at least listening to the podcast, you guys that are out there recognize that what Emmi said is true. There's somebody out there for everybody. And if that's not me, and if that's not Emmi, then they're out there and they might be hiding a little bit. But get in touch with us and we can maybe steer you in the right direction.
Awesome.
Awesome. So great to see you. And I'm looking forward to another fantastic interview another time.
Oh, thank you. Me too. Thank you so much for having me. I knew this was going to be a good one.
Yes.
A good chat.
Totally. And not the only one. Absolutely. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Well, we'll see you soon. Thanks for coming.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye. See you soon. If you found this episode helpful, subscribe and leave me a review. It really helps. Now, I have 2 tasks for you to do. First, I want you to register and come to my free live monthly masterclass. They're on the last Thursday of the month, and in just 2 hours, you're going to master a specific American accent skill. For example, the TH sound or rhythm. And the second, and maybe more important thing I want you to do, is to sign up for my mailing list. And that's because you're going to get the invitation link each month through an email. Also, you're going to get bonus materials for the masterclass that I only send out to my email list subscribers. The opt-in link is down in the show notes, so be sure to sign up for my email list and then come to the live monthly masterclass, all for free. I'm Bianca, your personal American accent coach, here to remind you that your voice is your choice. Thank you guys for listening, and thank you so much, Emmi. It was really interesting. If you have questions or you'd like to contact either Emmi or me, the resource links are also down in the show notes. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the show, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.